My sister beat my 6-year-old daughter because she broke her boyfriend's gift. So I filed a police report, exposed her to everyone, and got her fired from her job. Now, my parents are begging me to bail her out. Hey Reddit, I never thought I would be the guy posting one of these stories, but here we are. My sister physically assaulted my 6-year-old daughter over a broken gift, and when I went full scorched earth in response, suddenly I became the family villain. Buckle up because this is about to be one of those stories that makes you question everything you thought you knew about family loyalty. So I, 32 male, have a daughter named Lily, who just turned 6 last month. She is the absolute light of my life, the reason I drag myself out of bed every morning, and hands down the best thing that has ever happened to me. I am a single dad and have been raising her completely on my own since she was 2 years old. That was when my ex-wife decided that motherhood was not really her thing and took off to California to quote-unquote find herself. 4 years later, she is still finding herself apparently. She sends a birthday card once a year if Lily is lucky, and that represents the entire extent of her parenting contribution. No child support because she claims she cannot work. No custody arrangement because she never wanted one. No involvement whatsoever, because she genuinely does not seem to care. She basically ghosted her own daughter, and honestly, Lily is better off without that kind of inconsistency in her life. I work as a welder at a shipyard in Virginia Beach. It is genuinely hard work that leaves you physically exhausted at the end of every single shift. The heat is brutal, especially in summer when you are wearing all that protective gear and standing next to metal that has been sitting in the sun all day. Your body aches, your eyes burn from the brightness even through the mask, and you go home smelling like metal and sweat. But it pays well. The benefits are solid. The guys I work with are good people who have become like family, and most importantly, it gives me the schedule flexibility I need to actually be present for my daughter. I do the morning school drop-offs without fail, even when it means getting up at 5 in the morning to make sure everything is ready. I coach her Little League softball team on Saturday mornings. I make it to every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every award ceremony, every field trip that needs parent volunteers. Being a single dad working a physically demanding job is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. But Lily makes every sacrifice and every sore muscle worth it 10 times over. Now let me introduce you to the other main character in this disaster. My sister Brittany, 28 female, has been the golden child in our family since the day she was born. And I mean that literally. From the moment she came home from the hospital, our parents treated her like she walked on water, while I was basically furniture that occasionally needed to be fed. The favoritism in our household was so blatant and so consistent that by the time I was a teenager, I had just accepted it as the natural order of things. Brittany got whatever she wanted. I got whatever was left over. That was just how our family worked. Growing up, Brittany was the kind of kid who could do absolutely no wrong in our parents' eyes, no matter what she actually did. She would break something valuable in the house and somehow convince our mom and dad that I was responsible. One time, she knocked over my mom's favorite vase while horsing around, and by the time she was done crying and pointing fingers, I was grounded for 2 weeks even though I was in a completely different room when it happened. She would start physical fights with me, wait until I defended myself, and then run crying to our parents about how I was bullying her. The number of times I got punished for quote-unquote hitting my sister when she threw the first punch is honestly too high to count. One time when I was 16, she told her entire friend group that I was a pathetic loser with no social life, that I had never been on a date, that I spent all my time in my room playing video games alone. Those rumors spread through our high school like wildfire. Kids I barely knew were making comments in the hallway. When I confronted my parents about what she had done, they told me to stop being so sensitive and to focus on my schoolwork instead of what people thought of me. Meanwhile, Brittany faced absolutely zero consequences for actively sabotaging my social reputation during what were already some of the most awkward years of my life. The academic double standards were equally ridiculous. I was expected to maintain a 3.5 GPA minimum while working part-time at a grocery store to save money for my future. I was not allowed to go to parties because I needed to focus on school and work. I had a strict curfew that was enforced without exception, and if I was even 5 minutes late, there would be consequences. Brittany barely scraped by with C averages, never worked a single day in high school, and was allowed to party every single weekend because she needed to be social and enjoy her youth and have fun while she was young. Every achievement of mine was met with a half-hearted nod and maybe a pat on the back if I was lucky. Every mediocre thing Brittany accomplished was celebrated like she had just cured cancer and brought world peace at the same time. The financial favoritism was somehow even worse than everything else. When I graduated from trade school and earned my welding certification after 2 years of intense training and late nights studying for exams and practical tests that required serious skill, my parents barely acknowledged it. I got a generic card that they probably grabbed at a gas station on the way to the ceremony, and maybe $50 stuffed inside. No party, no celebration dinner, no real acknowledgement of what I had accomplished through hard work and dedication. When Brittany finally graduated from community college with a basic business administration degree after taking 5 full years to complete a 2 year program, because she kept failing classes and changing her mind about her major, they threw her a massive celebration. They rented out a room at a nice restaurant, invited all her friends and half our extended family, gave speeches about how proud they were of her, and then presented her with a brand new car as a graduation present. Not a used car. A brand new one, straight off the dealership lot with a big red bow on the hood, like something out of a commercial. I sat there watching this unfold and genuinely could not believe what I was seeing. When I bought my first house at 26 through years of saving every penny, working overtime shifts until my body ached, and living as frugally as humanly possible, I got a text message from my mom that said, "Congratulations," with a thumbs up emoji. That was it. No card, no gift, no offer to help with moving, nothing. Just a text message. When Brittany moved into a slightly nicer apartment the following year, our parents not only helped her move but also furnished the entire place with brand new furniture and appliances. New couch, new bed, new kitchen table, new television. They even paid her security deposit and first month's rent so she could quote-unquote get on her feet. You are starting to see the pattern here. In the hierarchy of our family, I have always been somewhere between an afterthought and a convenient scapegoat, while Brittany was the untouchable princess who could never be questioned or criticized, no matter what she did or how she treated people. When my ex-wife abandoned us and I suddenly became a single father to a 2-year-old, I genuinely thought maybe things would change. I thought maybe my parents would step up and offer some real support during what was obviously the most difficult period of my entire life. Here I was, 28 years old, suddenly alone with a toddler who did not understand where her mother had gone, working full-time while trying to figure out childcare and routines and everything else that comes with solo parenting. My mom did help with babysitting during that first brutal year. I have to give her credit for that. She would watch Lily a couple times a week, so I could work extra shifts, or just get a few hours of sleep. But even that came with constant passive-aggressive comments about how much she was sacrificing, constant reminders that she was not obligated to help me with my problems, constant suggestions that maybe I should have picked a better wife or been a better husband, so she would not have left. Every time she watched Lily, I heard about it for weeks afterward. Every favor came with strings attached and an unspoken expectation that I would owe her forever. Brittany made it crystal clear from day one that she wanted absolutely nothing to do with my daughter. She never offered to babysit, not even once, not even for an hour so I could run to the grocery store. She only showed up to birthday parties when our parents guilted her into making an appearance. And even then, she spent the entire time on her phone looking bored and annoyed, barely acknowledging that Lily existed. She never bought Lily a present that she actually picked out herself. She would just Venmo my mom $20 and tell her to put her name on whatever gift my parents were giving. She generally acted like Lily was an inconvenience to her very existence, a loud reminder that family gatherings now included a small child who might interrupt her Instagram scrolling. I tried not to let it bother me too much. I figured as long as she was not actively harmful to my daughter, I could tolerate her cold indifference for the sake of family peace. I had bigger things to worry about than my sister's selfishness. I had a daughter to raise. That calculation changed dramatically 6 weeks ago. My parents had been planning a family barbecue at their house to celebrate the start of summer. It was supposed to be a nice, relaxed gathering with just our immediate family. My parents, me and Lily, and Brittany, along with her new boyfriend Kevin. Kevin is this guy Brittany had been dating for about 4 months at that point. He works at some car dealership across town, selling overpriced vehicles to people who probably cannot afford them. And he apparently believes he is God's gift to women because he drives a leased sports car and has what he probably considers a stylish beard. I had met him exactly once before at a family dinner, and I was thoroughly unimpressed by basically everything about him. He spent most of that dinner talking about himself, his sales numbers, and his plans to become a regional manager within 2 years. Real charming guy. I was not exactly thrilled about spending my Saturday at this barbecue, but Lily absolutely loves her grandparents despite everything, and she had been excited about the gathering all week long. She kept talking about Grandma's backyard and Grandpa's hamburgers, and how she wanted to show Grandma the new cartwheel she had learned at gymnastics class. So I decided to put on my game face and make the best of the situation for her sake. I could tolerate a few hours of family dysfunction if it made my daughter happy. We arrived at my parents' house around noon. Lily immediately sprinted off to play in the backyard, where my parents have a swing set and sandbox they put in specifically for her visits. Watching her run across the grass with her ponytail bouncing made the whole trip worth it already. I helped my dad set up the grill and get the burgers and hot dogs ready, while my mom fussed around the kitchen, preparing potato salad and coleslaw and all the usual barbecue sides. For about an hour, things were actually pleasant. Just a normal family gathering on a warm Saturday afternoon. My dad and I talked about the upcoming football season. Lily showed off her cartwheel to my mom through the kitchen window. Everything seemed fine. Then Brittany and Kevin showed up. I could tell right away that something was off about the whole vibe. Brittany was acting even more insufferable than her usual baseline, clinging to Kevin's arm like he was a celebrity, and she was his personal publicist, hired to make sure everyone knew how important he was. She kept making comments about how perfect their relationship was, how Kevin treated her like a queen, how she had never been happier in her entire life, and everyone needed to know about it. Kevin, for his part, seemed more interested in scrolling through his phone than actually engaging with anyone at the gathering. He barely said hello to my parents and did not even acknowledge me or Lily. At some point during the afternoon, maybe 2 hours in, Kevin pulled this small decorative item out of a gift bag he had brought with them. It was some kind of crystal figurine, this little glass sculpture thing that was apparently quite expensive. He had bought it for Brittany as a gift for their 4-month anniversary. Yeah, you read that correctly. They were celebrating a 4-month dating anniversary with expensive crystal gifts like that was a thing normal people did. Who even celebrates 4-month anniversaries? That is not a milestone. That is barely getting started. Brittany was showing the figurine off to my mom like it was some priceless artifact from a museum that should be displayed behind glass with armed guards, going on and on about how thoughtful and generous Kevin was, and how the piece had cost several $100s from some specialty shop downtown that only sold fancy decorative items. My mom was eating it up completely, cooing over how beautiful it was, and how lucky Brittany was to have found such a wonderful man who clearly appreciated her so much. My dad nodded along like he always does when my mom and Brittany get going about something. I genuinely did not care about any of this. I was busy keeping an eye on Lily through the back window and trying to have a normal conversation with my dad about whether our team had any shot at the playoffs this year or if we were looking at another rebuilding season. The crystal figurine drama was background noise to me, just more Brittany worship that I had learned to tune out decades ago. Let her have her moment with her fancy glass decoration. It did not affect me. Here is where everything went completely sideways. Lily came running inside from the backyard because she needed to use the bathroom. She is 6 years old, full of energy, and still very much in that phase of childhood where you run everywhere instead of walking, because walking is for boring adults who have forgotten how to have fun. As she came through the living room at full speed, not paying attention to her surroundings the way 6-year-olds do when they are focused on getting to the bathroom, she accidentally bumped into the end table where Brittany had placed her precious crystal figurine on display. The thing wobbled for a second, then toppled off the edge of the table and shattered into dozens of pieces on the hardwood floor. It was an accident. A pure, innocent, completely unintentional accident caused by a small child who was excited and not watching where she was going. Kids bump into things. Kids break things. It is literally part of having kids around, and anyone who has ever spent more than 5 minutes with a child knows this. Lily immediately started crying when she realized what had happened, because she understood she had broken something, and she felt genuinely terrible about it. That is the kind of sweet, empathetic kid my daughter is. She would never intentionally damage anything or hurt anyone. What happened in the next 30 seconds is something I will never forget for as long as I live. Brittany came storming into the living room from the kitchen, like a woman possessed by pure rage. Her face was bright red, her eyes were wild, and before I could even process what was happening, she grabbed my daughter roughly by the arm, hard enough that Lily cried out in pain and started screaming at her. She called Lily a stupid brat. She called her a clumsy little monster who ruined everything. She demanded to know what was wrong with her and why she could not watch where she was going like a normal person. And then, right there in front of everyone present, right in front of our parents who stood there frozen like statues, my 28-year-old sister slapped my 6-year-old daughter across the face, hard. The sound of the impact echoed through the room like a gunshot. Lily crumpled to the ground, sobbing hysterically, holding her cheek where a bright red handprint was already forming on her skin. Her whole body was shaking. She was crying so hard she could barely breathe. For approximately 2 seconds, I was completely frozen in place. My brain simply could not process what I had just witnessed with my own eyes. My sister, my own flesh and blood, had physically assaulted my child. She had hit a 6-year-old girl hard enough to leave a mark over a stupid crystal decoration that some mediocre car salesman had given her. Then the rage hit me like a freight train at full speed. I was across that room in 3 steps. I got my body between Brittany and my daughter, forming a physical barrier to make sure she could not touch Lily again. And I looked my sister dead in the eyes and told her in the calmest voice I could manage, a voice that did not even sound like my own, that if she ever put her hands on my daughter again, I would end her. I did not yell. I did not scream. I did not make threats or throw punches or do anything that would give her ammunition to play the victim. I just made it absolutely clear that she had made the biggest mistake of her entire life and that there would be consequences. Brittany immediately flipped into victim mode, like she had been practicing for this exact scenario her entire life. She started crying and wailing about how Lily had ruined everything, how the figurine was a special, meaningful gift from Kevin that showed how much he loved her, how I was completely overreacting to a simple discipline situation that any aunt would have handled the same way. Kevin just stood there looking deeply uncomfortable, not saying a single word in any direction, probably calculating how this was going to affect his plans for the evening. And my parents? The people who raised us? Who should have immediately rushed to protect their granddaughter? They just stood there like statues made of absolute cowardice, not doing a single thing to defend Lily or hold Brittany accountable, or even acknowledge that what had just happened was wrong. I scooped up my daughter from the floor, grabbed my keys and Lily's backpack from where I had left them by the door, and we were out of that house in under 30 seconds. I did not say goodbye. I did not give anyone a chance to explain themselves or offer fake apologies, or try to minimize what had just happened. I just got my daughter out of there as fast as humanly possible. In the car, Lily was still crying uncontrollably. She kept asking me through her tears why Aunt Brittany had hit her, what she had done wrong, if Aunt Brittany hated her now, if she was in trouble for breaking the glass thing. And I did not have a good answer for any of those questions, because how do you explain to a 6-year-old that some adults are just cruel people who do cruel things? I told her that what happened was absolutely not her fault, that the accident with the figurine was just an accident that anyone could have had, that Aunt Brittany was completely wrong to hit her no matter what, and that I would never let anyone hurt her again for as long as I lived. When we got home, I went into full documentation mode. I took detailed pictures of the mark on Lily's face from multiple angles with good lighting. The handprint was clearly visible, red and angry against her soft cheek. I wrote down everything that had happened while it was still fresh in my memory. The sequence of events, exactly what Brittany had said word for word, the names of everyone who was present and witnessed the assault, what time everything happened. I noted timestamps for everything and saved all of it in a folder on my phone. Then I sat down at my kitchen table while Lily watched cartoons in the next room, finally calming down with her favorite show and a juice box, and I thought very carefully about what I was going to do next. Some people might have let this go. Some people might have accepted a tearful apology from Brittany and moved on for the sake of keeping family peace and not making waves. But I am not some people. You do not put your hands on my child and walk away without serious consequences. I do not care if you are my sister, my mother, or the Pope himself. You assault my daughter. You pay the price in every way I can legally arrange. The next morning, I called out of work and took Lily to her pediatrician to have the injury officially examined and documented. The doctor carefully noted the bruising pattern on her face, asked detailed questions about exactly what had happened and when, and added everything to Lily's medical record with photographs. She looked at me with an expression that was equal parts sympathy and quiet anger at what had been done to my daughter, and she told me I was doing the right thing by documenting everything thoroughly. She said she had seen too many cases like this get swept under the rug. After the pediatrician appointment, I drove directly to the police station and filed a formal report. I showed the responding officer the pictures on my phone, gave him a comprehensive written statement of everything that had occurred, provided the names and contact information for everyone who had witnessed the assault. The officer was professional and thorough. He told me that assaulting a minor was a serious criminal offense in Virginia, and that they would absolutely be following up on this report. Within 48 hours, Brittany was arrested at my parents' house and charged with assault on a minor. 2 officers showed up, put her in handcuffs in front of the neighbors, and took her to the station for booking. She had to spend a night in jail before my parents managed to post her bail the next morning. And that is when my phone started blowing up with notifications. My mom called me 17 times in a row over the course of 3 hours. When I finally answered just to make the ringing stop, she was completely hysterical on the other end of the line. She could not believe I had actually involved the police in a family matter. She said I was tearing the entire family apart with my vindictiveness. She actually said the words, "Kids get hit sometimes, and it is not the end of the world." I hung up on her mid-sentence and blocked her number. My dad sent me a long, rambling text about how disappointed he was in me. He said Brittany was just stressed and did not mean it. He demanded that I drop the charges immediately and apologize to my sister for overreacting. I screenshotted the message from my records and did not respond. Brittany herself bombarded me with dozens of messages over the next few days that ranged from fake, remorseful apologies to outright unhinged threats. She said I had ruined her life over nothing. She claimed I was jealous of her relationship with Kevin and was using this as an excuse to hurt her. She told me I was a terrible father. She threatened to sue me for defamation. I screenshotted every single message and saved them all. Here is where the situation got particularly interesting. Brittany works at a daycare center. Or more accurately, she worked at a daycare center. Her job was literally taking care of other people's small children for 8 hours a day. She was responsible for their safety. And now she had a pending criminal charge for assaulting a minor. I did not contact her employer. I did not reach out to the daycare administration. I did not have to. It turns out that when you get arrested for hitting a child, that information becomes public record. Someone at the daycare found out through the local news crime blotter or just word of mouth in our community. Within 1 week of her arrest, Brittany was terminated from her position. She called me screaming that I had gotten her fired. I calmly reminded her that I had not contacted anyone at her job. She got herself fired by assaulting a child. The consequences were self-inflicted. The termination sent Brittany into a spiral. Without income, she could not afford rent. Kevin dumped her within 2 weeks. Apparently, a girlfriend with child abuse charges was not the look he was going for. Brittany had to move back in with my parents at 28 years old. But I was not finished. My family cares deeply about appearances. What the neighbors think, what church friends whisper, what extended family gossips about at holidays. They spent decades cultivating this image of the perfect family, and I had just cracked that facade. So I blew the whole thing open. I wrote a detailed post on social media explaining exactly what happened. I included the pictures of Lily's bruised face. I described what Brittany did and made clear that my parents witnessed the assault and did nothing to stop it. I tagged every family member I could think of. Aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole extended network. The response was immediate. My phone exploded with messages from relatives I had not spoken to in years. Almost everyone was horrified. They could not believe Brittany would do that to a child. They could not believe my parents stood by and did nothing. Several aunts reached out offering support and saying they were proud of me for standing up for my daughter. My parents were humiliated. Their perfect image was shattered. My mom called sobbing, begging me to take the post down. I told her Brittany destroyed the family when she hit my child, and they destroyed it further by defending her. My dad showed up at my house demanding I take down the post and drop charges. I told him he had 10 seconds to get off my property before I called police for trespassing. He left without another word. The criminal case moved forward through the system. Brittany hired a lawyer and tried to fight the charges, arguing that it was a one-time incident that had been blown out of proportion by an overly protective father with a grudge against his sister. Her lawyer filed motions trying to get the case dismissed, claiming there was insufficient evidence of intent to harm, and that reasonable corporal discipline by a family member did not constitute assault. The prosecutor was not having any of it. She pointed out that Brittany had no parental authority over Lily, that the force used was excessive by any reasonable standard, that there were multiple witnesses, including the defendant's own parents, and that the documented injury was consistent with the reported events. She also noted that Brittany worked with children professionally, which made the incident even more concerning from a public safety standpoint. After 3 months of legal maneuvering and 2 pretrial hearings where things did not go her way, Brittany's attorney advised her to take a plea deal rather than risk going to trial, where the evidence would be presented to a jury. A jury of parents would not look kindly on an adult who slapped a 6-year-old hard enough to leave a bruise. She pleaded guilty to simple assault. 6 months probation, mandatory anger management classes that she would have to pay for herself, community service hours at a local food bank, and a permanent mark on her criminal record that would show up on any background check for the rest of her life. She is now prohibited from unsupervised contact with minors as a condition of her probation, which effectively ended any chance of ever working with children again in any capacity. Her career in childcare is permanently over. My mom actually asked me to help bail Brittany out financially, since she is drowning in debt. She wanted me to loan my sister money. I laughed. I told her Brittany could figure it out on her own. I told her if she kept pushing, she would lose access to Lily entirely. She backed off after that. Update, 3 weeks later. Quick update on everything that has happened. Lily is thriving. Her softball team made the playoffs, and she hit a double in the championship game. Watching her round first base with the biggest smile on her face was the proudest moment of my life. My parents have not stopped trying to force reconciliation. Guilt trips, emotional blackmail, enlisting relatives to pressure me. My dad showed up at my workplace during lunch, trying to corner me for a conversation. My supervisor noticed and let me take my break in the back office away from him. Brittany has been quiet because her attorney told her to stop contacting me. But through the family grapevine, I know she still blames me for everything. She tells everyone I destroyed her life over a simple accident. She leaves out the part where she assaulted a child. The anger management classes are not working. At her first session, she argued with the facilitator about whether what she did even qualified as assault. That went poorly for her. Here is where things got interesting. Brittany's termination triggered a review by the State Child Care Licensing Board. Parents at the daycare started asking questions about who had been caring for their kids. Some found my social media post and reached out to me directly, wanting to know if their children had ever been in Brittany's care. I told them I could only speak to what she did to my daughter, but I gave them the case number and explained how to request information through proper channels. At least 3 families filed formal complaints with the state. The daycare is now under investigation for their hiring practices. Brittany blames me for that too, even though those parents found my post on their own and made their own decisions. Then my grandmother got involved in a way that changed everything. My parents brought her to my house unannounced one evening, probably thinking I would not turn away an elderly woman standing on my doorstep. They were banking on my respect for my grandmother to force a conversation they knew I would otherwise refuse to have. But here is the thing about my grandmother. Unlike my parents, she has always treated me fairly and with genuine respect, even during the worst periods of favoritism when I was growing up. She never played favorites between me and Brittany. She always remembered my birthday with a card and a phone call. She asked about my life like she actually cared about the answers. So I let her inside. She sat down in my living room and asked to hear my side of the story from beginning to end. I told her everything and showed her the picture of Lily's face. She listened without interrupting. Then she turned to my parents and asked one simple question. Why did they not call the police themselves when they saw their granddaughter get hit by an adult? They could not answer. They stammered about not wanting to overreact. My grandmother shook her head slowly. She told them she was ashamed of both of them. Then she gave me a long hug, told me I was doing the right thing, and asked my parents to drive her home. That evening, my grandmother called various relatives and told them her assessment of the situation. Family opinions shifted even further in my favor after that. Final update. 6 weeks later. All right, Reddit, this is the final update. Big things have happened. Brittany finished her anger management program. My mom sent me a picture of the certificate like I was supposed to be impressed. I did not respond. The daycare investigation concluded. They found procedural violations in their hiring process and got fined by the state. No additional abuse was discovered, which was a relief for those families. Now here is what happened last week that closed this whole chapter for good. My mom called asking if she could take Lily for an afternoon. Just grandmother and granddaughter together. I agreed with explicit conditions. Brittany could not be there. Brittany could not even know about the visit. If my mom tried to arrange any contact whatsoever between Lily and Brittany, it would be the last visit ever. The afternoon went fine. Lily came home happy with fresh cookies and a new coloring book from Grandma. 2 days later, I found out what really happened. My neighbor has security cameras that cover part of the street in front of our houses. He mentioned casually that he saw my mom's car pull up with 2 people inside when she came to pick up Lily. The second person stayed in the car the whole time. My mom was at my door collecting my daughter. I asked him if I could see the footage. He showed me. It was Brittany. She sat in the passenger seat watching while my mom walked up to my house, collected Lily, and brought her back to the car. My daughter was in the back seat of that car with her abuser sitting right in front of her. I called my mom immediately. She tried to deny it at first, claiming she did not know what I was talking about. When I told her I had seen the security footage, she switched tactics. She said Brittany just wanted to see Lily from a distance. She said Brittany promised she would not get out of the car. She said I was overreacting again and making a big deal out of nothing. I told her in a very calm voice that she had just permanently lost all access to her granddaughter. No more visits, no more phone calls, no more birthday cards, nothing. Ever again. She started crying and begging and saying she was sorry, and it would never happen again. I hung up. My dad called about an hour later. absolutely furious. He said I was punishing them for nothing. He said Brittany has rights too. He said I was being a vindictive monster who was using my daughter as a weapon against my own family. I told him that bringing Brittany anywhere near my daughter after everything that happened was not nothing. It was a direct violation of the one boundary I had set, the one condition I had made clear. I told him if he wanted to keep defending Brittany, he could keep her company when she has nobody left. He threatened to take me to court for grandparent visitation rights. I told him to go ahead and try, and to make sure he explained to the judge that the reason we were in court was because his other daughter had assaulted my child, and he kept trying to force contact with the abuser. He hung up. I contacted a family lawyer the next day to understand my legal options and make sure I was protected. She reviewed all my documentation, including the police report, the medical records, the screenshots of Brittany's threatening messages, and the security camera footage showing Brittany in the car. She told me that in Virginia, grandparent visitation rights are very difficult to obtain when the custodial parent objects. The standard is extremely high, and courts generally defer to parental judgment on who has access to their children. Combined with the documented assault, Brittany's criminal record for child abuse, the violation of my explicit boundary conditions, and the evidence that my parents had facilitated contact between Lily and her abuser against my clear instructions, she said my parents would have almost no realistic chance of success if they actually filed anything. Any judge would take one look at this case and question why grandparents who enabled their daughter to get close to a child she had previously assaulted should be granted any visitation rights at all. She also advised me to send my parents a formal cease and desist letter documenting everything that had happened and putting them on notice that any further attempts to contact Lily or facilitate contact between Lily and Brittany would result in legal action. I had her draft the letter and sent it certified mail so there would be a record of receipt. My dad signed for it 3 days later. That was 2 weeks ago. I have not heard a single word from either of my parents since. Brittany tried reaching out through a new phone number a few days later. She left a voicemail saying she just wanted to apologize in person and see Lily one more time so they could quote-unquote start fresh. I did not respond. I blocked the number and saved the voicemail for my records, in case she violates the no-contact provisions of her probation. Lily asked me last week why Grandma and Grandpa do not come around anymore. I told her they made some bad choices and need time to think about them. She nodded like that made perfect sense, asked if she could have a popsicle, and went back to playing with her dolls in the backyard. Kids are resilient like that. Here is the good news that came out of all this mess. My buddy from work and his wife have basically adopted us into their family. They had us over for dinner twice last week, and their kids played with Lily in the backyard for hours. She has been asking when she can see her new friends again. Another coworker's mom heard through the grapevine that Lily's grandparents were out of the picture. She showed up at my house last Saturday with a batch of homemade cookies and offered to be an honorary grandmother. Lily now has more positive adults in her life than she ever did when my toxic biological family was involved. Last Saturday after softball practice, Lily's coach pulled me aside while the other kids were packing up their gear. He told me he wanted me to know that Lily was one of the happiest and most well-adjusted kids on the entire team. He said whatever I was doing as a single dad, I should keep doing it because it was clearly working. That compliment meant more to me than anything my parents ever said in my entire life. So that is where everything stands. Brittany is out of my life permanently. My parents burned their last bridge with that stunt in the car, and they are now out too. Lily is happy and healthy and thriving, and I have built a network of good people around us who actually care about her well-being instead of caring about family image and protecting the golden child. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.